Shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video.
What is it about the owners of the AMC Pacer wagon that sets them apart?
Back in 1975, American Motors introduced an all-new car platform that they hailed as the car of tomorrow. A car that was compact in length, but as wide as most full-size cars. AMC spent millions of dollars it couldn't afford on a car that, although sold well in its first year, endured 5 years of sliding sales and being the butt of endless jokes, only to see its popularity rise again many years later, long after AMC was relegated to history. This is the story of the AMC Pacer. This is my old car.
The AMC Pacer wagon. It's big inside where it counts, and that makes its owners smart.
Although I have gotten several requests for the Pacer, until recently I hadn't considered featuring it in its own episode, since production was only in the 1970s. And so I expect I'll have some viewers call me out on this, since I always have said that I will only feature cars from the 1980s to mid-2000s. Although production ended in December of 1979, those final cars were for the 1980 model year and were sold in 1980. And if you grew up in the early 80s, you likely often saw Pacers on the road. But I mostly wanted to feature this car because I've always liked weird cars. So much so that I'm considering doing a future Top 10 episode on weirdest cars. Speaking of Top 10 lists, I hope to release my first Top 10 episode on the worst subcompact cars, based on your votes, on April 30. The deadline for submitting your votes for a future episode on the best or worst family sedan of the 80s to mid-2000s is Friday, April 29, 2022. The original idea of the Pacer came from automobile designer Richard Teague, who joined AMC in 1959 and quickly rose to the role of principal designer by 1961. Teague had his hand in several AMC designs, including the Rambler and the Ambassador. AMC's chairman, Roy Chapin, who took over the company in 1967, assigned Teague the task of designing the Pacer in 1971, known back then as Project Amigo. Chapin heralded the Pacer's fresh, bold, and functional design. At least that's what Road and Track magazine called it back then. AMC's financial condition was far from secure in the mid-70s, as redesigns of cars like the Javelin and the Matador didn't translate into sales successes. What AMC needed was a car that would appeal to the masses, and be designed on a platform that could adapt to multiple cars. But what Teague created, and Chapin made sure was highly advertised, was what they called the first wide small car. The Pacer was, in fact, only 2 inches shorter in width, but nearly 4 feet shorter in length than the full-size Chevrolet Caprice.
Because now you can get that room and ride in the first wide small car, the AMC Pacer.
When the Caprice downsized in 1977, the unchanged Pacer was now about 2 inches wider. The Pacer also had more glass than nearly any other car, accounting for 37% of the car's outer surface, as compared to 20 to 25% for most other cars, often being likened to a fishbowl on wheels.
Okay, hit it! Wide, small was never this wide.
This predictably made the Pacer less popular in hot climates, as all the glass trapped the heat like a greenhouse. And because the glass area was so tall, the windows couldn't roll down all the way into the door. Although AMC never used the term cab forward, the Pacer could be considered a much earlier adopter of the cab forward look.
I didn't know it was that wide.
Despite all the extra width, the rear seat was positioned between the rear wheels, so technically it only fit 2 people, although 3 skinny guys could fit back there no problem.
Let me go! Let me go!
Its odd shape makes it harder to notice that the passenger door was stretched an additional 4 inches as compared to the driver's door, to allow easier access to the rear seats, a design unheard of in most any other car. And in case you're wondering, yes, the Pacer was sold in the UK converted to right-hand drive, but the additional door width wasn't also switched to the opposite side, so passengers trying to reach the rear seats from the curb had to squeeze through a smaller door opening. The unusual width of the car, as well as the front engine and rear-wheel drive layout, owes its existence to AMC's need to conform as much as they could to the resources they already had. Although the Pacer was an all-new platform, and in fact only the 4th all-new platform since AMC began in 1954, the car's width and rear drive layout would more easily conform to the existing production line at AMC's Kenosha, Wisconsin assembly plant that also built the Matador and the Gremlin.
A Gremlin and a Pacer.
But the Pacer did have modern rack and pinion steering, and the engine and suspension design made them more isolated from the passenger compartment.
Well, what do you think, guys? Do you feel cool?
Not at all.
For 1976, the Pacer's structural design met crash standards that weren't required until 1980. But when it came to the engine choice for the Pacer, the original plan wasn't going to be the more traditional piston engine, but instead, it was going to be the Wankel rotary engine, probably better known in cars like the Mazda RX-7. Much of the Pacer's design was built around the rotary engine, which was going to be supplied by General Motors. But in 1974, GM canceled their rotary development, thanks in part to upcoming emission regulations for which the rotary, despite its compact size and fewer moving parts, simply wouldn't meet. Design for the Pacer was too far along to cancel, so the designers scrambled to make AMC's existing inline six-cylinder work instead. The six-cylinder wasn't much better than the rotary would have been in terms of fuel economy, rating only at 18 miles per gallon in city driving. It didn't help that glass weighs more per square inch than sheet metal, making the Pacer heavier than its competitors at over 3,000 pounds.
It's the perfect time of year.
Even a V8 was offered starting in 1978, so the lack of power from the 6 must have been significant for AMC to even consider a V8, as by then the popularity of gas-guzzling V8 engines was on the decline. In 1977, as part of a concept car tour that AMC called Concept 80, one of the more popular cars shown was called the AM van, which clearly used the Pacer for inspiration, but larger. This concept was supposed to have a turbocharged engine and four-wheel drive, but it never went beyond the concept stage. In fact, the concept didn't even have a finished interior or an engine at all. AMC simply didn't have the cash to continue with this concept, and instead introduced a less radical option that same year, the Pacer station wagon. The Pacer wagon was only 5 inches longer than the original Pacer, so I suspect the term station wagon was probably more of a marketing ploy than anything else, as wagons tended to sell well back then.
Hey, it's raining.
But the rear of the wagon model was also redesigned, such that the rear side windows no longer wrapped around the back, resulting in a less controversial look.
I'm sorry about that.
The wagon body style also had an additional smaller window just behind the B-pillar, which could be popped open for ventilation. To further make it clear that AMC wanted it to be considered a wagon, you could get optional fake wood paneling. The front grille was also redesigned for 1978 to fit a V8. Also in 1978, a higher trim option, called the DL, was offered in an attempt to reposition the Pacer as a compact luxury car. Although I doubt anyone today would use the word luxury and AMC Pacer in the same sentence. That's what they had in mind back then, as the DL model offered a wood grain dashboard, more chrome, better seat fabric, and unique wheel covers. And believe it or not, in 1979 and 1980, you could buy a Pacer with a limited package, which offered leather and corduroy seats and optional power windows and locks. In 1978, in an attempt to improve the Pacer's poor fuel economy, a company called Electric Vehicle Associates of Cleveland designed their own conversion for the Pacer to be a plug-in electric. They called it the Change of Pace. This special built-to-order model cost $12,360 back then, so needless to say, it wasn't a huge seller, with only 100 models ever produced. With the addition of the wagon model, AMC had hoped to boost sagging sales.
The rear hatch and all this room sure come in handy. Smart.
Although over 145,000 were sold for the first model year of 1976, sales averaged only around 35,000 per year after that.
Oh, I see you got one of those great-looking wide Pacers. Glad I suggested it. Smart.
In fact, approximately half of all Pacer sales during its entire run took place in just the first model year.
The American Motors Pacer has been out for fewer than 6 months, and yet it already accounts for nearly 44% of all AMC sales.
Although its bizarre design definitely contributed to the sales decline, that doesn't entirely explain the high number of sales the first year. As word got out of the Pacer's poor fuel economy, especially when compared to all the other subcompacts that were on the market back then, the Pacer simply could not compete. The Pacer's rear drive layout was also a liability, as many compact cars were moving to front-wheel drive, which not only allowed for better handling in bad weather, but also meant more interior room. Despite its full-size car width, the rear drive shaft in the floor seriously ate into the Pacer's interior room.
I have to tell you, this doesn't open from the inside. Oh, God!
Owners also complained about the lack of cargo room behind the rear seat, with its high load floor thanks to the unusually large 22-gallon fuel tank below it. The wagon model with its redesigned hatch allowed for more cargo space, but not enough to change the downward sales trend. The Pacer was AMC's smallest car offering, but that changed when Renault took a significant share of AMC ownership to help keep the company afloat, which later became a controlling interest in AMC. This led to Renault offering one of its own cars, known in France as the Renault 5, to be marketed in the US as the Le Car, starting in 1979.
Dude, there's your car. Oh.
The Le Car was sold in AMC dealerships, alongside AMC Pacers, so now the Pacer was no longer AMC's smallest car, and couldn't come close to the Le Car's fuel economy. Although it can't be said with certainty that the Le Car marked the beginning of the end for the Pacer, the poor sales of the Pacer by 1979 were such that it likely wouldn't have lasted much longer. But then again, AMC as a company may not have survived past 1980 without Renault anyway. Once Renault took over, the models that kept AMC alive were primarily under the Jeep sub-brand, although they also had their AMC Eagle model, which was the last car marketed under the AMC brand before Chrysler's buyout in 1987. Check out my earlier episode about the AMC Eagle to learn more about that car. Like most any other car after it is discontinued, the Pacer's value dropped soon after its cancellation, but for the Pacer it was worse, since its parent company dissolved soon after.
That's $425 off the list price.
How about off?
As a result, the vast majority of the 280,000 Pacers built over its 5-year run are long gone. But in 1992, popularity of the Pacer jumped considerably thanks to the somewhat unexpected success of the movie Wayne's World.
This is my best friend, Garth Algar.
Hi.
Based on a Saturday Night Live skit of the same name.
Exactly how does the suck cut work?
The movie featured a powder blue 1976 model called the Mirthmobile, complete with flame decals and, an option definitely not available in 1976, a ceiling-mounted licorice dispenser. The car's most memorable moment in the movie featured Wayne and Garth rocking out in the car to the 1975 hit Bohemian Rhapsody, arguably the most famous song from the rock band Queen. This portion of the movie was so loved by audiences that a new version of the Bohemian Rhapsody music video, now featuring clips from the movie, was released on VHS in 1992. What makes this most ironic is that the actual car used in the movie didn't have a functioning radio. This same car would later be sold and resold multiple times, and eventually restored back to its original look from the movie, including the mismatched hubcaps, but also with a new stereo system. If you still own a Pacer, it's not likely it's going to fetch the price that Garth's Pacer did, but it could still sell for more than the car did originally, as cars like the Pacer have now become cultural icons. The Wayne's World movie definitely helped, but I think the popularity of the Pacer today would be just as strong regardless of the movie. It takes us back to a time when AMC could have turned themselves around with such a daring and unique car of the future, but instead, it has cemented itself in our minds as a quintessential 1970s car. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, click the like button and subscribe to my channel.
In Latin, she would be called Babia Majora.
If she were a president, she'd be Abraham Lincoln.
If you once owned a car from the 80s to mid-2000s that you rarely see today and would like it featured in a future episode, leave a reply in the comments or contact me at the email shown here. See you next time. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's episode. You can create your own website with Squarespace's powerful and beautiful online platform, and connect with your audience and generate revenue through gated, members-only content. You can manage your members, send email communications, and leverage audience insights, all on one easy-to-use platform, and grow and engage your audience with Squarespace email campaigns. With Squarespace, you can create powerful email content that matches your website with your existing products, blog posts, and logo, so your messaging is consistent and effective. Squarespace websites are optimized for mobile, so your content automatically adjusts so your site looks great on any device. And you can use customizable galleries to display images and videos in unique ways. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/myoldcar to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.